Hello everyone. Welcome to our first live review. We're just going to be doing a bit of introduction. First, there is me. Hello, my name is Mustafa. I'm a VFX artist at EA Dice. I've been doing VFX for the last 10 years, and some of the projects that I've worked on are Middle-earth: Shadow of War, Gears of War, and uh, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. And I am recently working on Battlefield. Yeah, I'll give it to Bjorn.
Yeah, hi. My name is Björn Riemann. I'm a senior technical VFX artist, which is an unnecessarily long title, but that's the kind of what I am. I started doing or working with games around 10 years ago, similar to Mustafa. And this time I worked on studios like Crytek, where I was responsible for the VFX for like Hunt Showdown, which a decent amount of people know nowadays. And then also in a company in Germany called Deck 13, which did The Search, as well as Atlas Fallen afterwards. Then a bit of very short time actually on Fish Labs, and now I'm in Sweden since around a year, where I work for 10 Chambers, which is the company which did GTFO, as well as now we're working on Den of Wolves, and before that they did all the Payday games. And yeah, over to our lovely Miha.
Hello. So I'm Michał, and also technical VFX artist, maybe not as technical as Bjorn, but I also do a bit of tech. For Salzburg games, I work on Immortal Gates of Fire. Now a bit less, more I focus on Bond, which is also another game that soon probably coming to Steam. And I used to work in Spoko, which was part of C Project for some time as a technical artist on The Witcher Monster Slayer. I also worked on a couple mobile or VR titles, more like a programmer back then. So it was #Drive and some VR titles that no one knows because they were used in the Inside Studio. Like we had like a studio that were basically having those games there. And so yeah, I have some experience as a programmer, have some experience as a tech art, and for a couple last years, mostly as a VFX artist. And yeah, hopefully I will be able to give you a good feedback.
Yeah, so overall, we decided to kind of split up the portfolios because we got a very decent amount, and people here have like different skill sets and also like just years of experience. So overall, pretty much each one of us is gonna handle around 4 portfolios, and we're gonna kind of split it up into, let's call it more beginners, intermediates, and then also the advanced part, or like people which have a decent amount of experience. And if you still want to put your portfolio, you can put it into the community events inside your portfolio, which we have named very nicely.
Perfectly.
Yeah, you can also we send it in here for this one. Yeah. So we're gonna start with Miha, who's gonna take over the. It's not really beginners. It's not really fully categorized, but it fits.
We all categorize it with styles.
Exactly. So, yeah, Miha is gonna start with it, and then we're gonna hand over to Mustafa afterwards.
Yeah. So let me start with, first of all, moving this window here and shrink my screen. I guess not like this, and there we go. I'll move. Can you all see my screen with that effect here?
Yes.
Awesome. One more thing. Okay, so we'll start with Charus. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. I have no idea how to pronounce it. And maybe let's just start with watching it. So we got a Vimeo reel here. There's no sound, by the way. It's like this. Okay. And there are plenty of things we can go through here. So maybe I will start with presentation itself. Vimeo is a good site for like having high quality videos in it. But in your case, I don't think you really like it benefits here because there's not too much description that you have for your FX. There's not too much separation. It's much harder for you to add another FX if you want to do like different styles or just different types of FX that are not connected to this environment. So what I would first of all do is probably move your reel to ArtStation because there are some questions I would have while watching it. First of all, is it like a personal project that you are part of because you are having like some kind of very not typical environment here? So I'm not sure if you worked on something. Is it like a game that you are creating VFX for, or is just environment you quickly prepared for your reel? And it makes a huge difference because projects that you actually implemented FX for me at least, they're a bit more valuable. So yeah, for the presentation itself, I would probably just put an ArtStation site, talk a bit, like describe whether it's your personal project, I suppose it is. Then also it's worth stating what engine it is in, because then it's very useful for companies to know that, oh, you have experience in Unreal or you have experience in Unity. Even though engines don't have that much importance because you can easily switch them, it's good to state what you created a certain VFX in because recruiters usually don't know that. And that's for the presentation itself. If you go through the FX, the first thing that I noticed is that you have a bit of problem with clarity of your FX. So you have this grid right here with those hexagons on the ground. If you use this type of environment that instantly tells you that there is like a playground, yeah, kind of like a battlefield, which probably works on hexes. So if you cast a spell, it will affect certain part of that environment. So for example, this hex right here, it would be good to present it a bit more clearly. So when we have this decal here, it's rectangular shape. And because of that, I don't know if, like, I know those hexagons will be affected. Those hexagons will be affected most likely. Those in the middle for sure. And I'm not really sure about those here. So I would be very careful with how you choose your shapes to make sure that your gameplay intent is clear and that you know which area will be affected. Same with putting some kind of response on the environment itself that, oh yeah, those hexes are being used. So if I heal, then for example, you can change a bit material on those hexes that are being affected and make them like bright blue or green. Like use those colors that you already have here. And then you easily show easily show what this spell is doing. So that's something I would definitely focus the most in your portfolio. Overall, I really like the colors. You're having a lot of nice variation in, for example, if you have the like, green yellowish here, you go to the blue cyan very smoothly. I really like those colors here. Same with the healing. You properly show that this is a healing spell and I can see it instantly. Same with the decal itself is quite interesting. So you do a lot of things correctly. It's mostly, I think, shape that limit you right now, even with this sphere right here. So you have the rectangle for your area, and then you have the sphere that indicates the energy of healing that is spreading, which is not filling this area. So you're kind of giving the wrong information to the player. Okay, let's move a bit further. same here. So here you already used your grid for those rocks, which is great. They are placed like they're showing which area will be affected. There's a problem that your decal for the buildup is in a wrong place. So if I had ability that has this shape while casting, I would expect that all of those fields here would be filled with rocks. Well, what you do is you just fill some of them. So probably better to choose a shape that is like this and just goes over those lines here. So you can clearly show what is being affected. Another thing that I didn't mention earlier, because it wasn't a problem. Here you have the same rocks all over the place. Maybe like as a VFX artist, one of the things I usually do quite a lot is play with random values. It's like a huge, powerful tool to avoid the repetition. So you could do the random value for like a lifetime to make them appear even with like a very slight offset. You can have like from 0 to 0.3 second delay or something like that. And it would make it so that not all of those rocks will appear at the same time, but they would like all look like they're appearing instantly. And also randomizing the rotation of those rocks so you have a bit more variation. Same with values for like the explosion, stuff like this. Randomization is a huge tool for just making your effects look a bit more unique. There are obviously things like fitting the styles a bit, so you could try to have styles okay here. Timing is also decent. Like you already have quite good timing. Obviously the randomization would help to make it better, but you have that okay, maybe it's not too punchy, but it's not too bad. Like you could probably make them appear a bit faster and then slow down with a curve to make it even better, but it's decent. Like I can see it in the game. Let's see further. So here's some kind of that was quick. Here's some kind of fire ability. The build-up looks pretty good. The timing here is not working well for this ability. So I suppose it's a damage ability. You want to cause some kind of fire damage to your enemy. So for offense abilities, it's good to have a timing that is quite fast. So I would make the fireball a bit more punchy at the beginning. Just throw very quickly, maybe do a little flash here okay, there's a bit of flash, that's fine. But maybe just make it a bit quicker so that it's, more punchy, that you really want to harm someone. And then the other thing is you could probably add a little rotation to that rock here so that it doesn't look so stiff while moving. It kind of looks stretched already, which is good. And the thing that this effect lacks the most is the aftermath of entire heat. So you could, first of all, do something I mentioned at the very beginning. So maybe get a material of that hexagon you have here, or even like spawn a sprite on top of it that is like higher, like lighting it up, and get and look like show what's being affected. Okay, give me a second. Yeah, okay. There are a lot of things I could go through probably on those. So here you're also using the same decal for all of those effects. So we have maybe not this one. This one, I think. Where's here? You're using basically the same decal for different effects, which is also a bad thing. Like change the colors, change the shape a bit so that you can also show that different skill is happening so the player can avoid it. Yeah, there's a lot of things. I think I will have to go to the next one now. But basically those things I mentioned here are kind of very similar for the next effect you're showing. So here, the shape, again, here it's the same with the fireball, so you can show more which field is being affected, change the timing a bit. And then you have kind of a nice feel of the elements, so I can see that you are like feeling if something is healing, if something is like electric, fire, and all of that. I can see that. So you're doing a good job there, but yeah, mostly your gameplay and your clarity is something that you should probably improve on. But overall, really, really decent. Let me. Okay, Bjorn, Mustafa, do you have anything to add, or can I move to the next one?
I just have like a small thing, and it's honestly, like you mentioned, most of the stuff that I had basically looked at. I think you're right. He does have a really, really good way of blending colors, and when it comes to the feel and the actual elements. The only thing is that I can say is a little bit of the timing and a little bit of the shapes when it comes to the decals. And one thing that you mentioned was changing between states. So one thing I would suggest is have a state for damage where your grids are in red, and you have a state for healing, or basically when a friendly's on it, and it would be blue or green and so on. But overall, the feel and the actual elements in there, like, looks good to me, to be honest.
Yeah, so for me, I think there would be a lot of things to go into if we would do an actual in-depth analysis. But from everything that was already said, I would agree. There is a pretty big issue with the presentation in terms of disconnecting the actual gameplay from the visuals, because we kind of need to guess immediately what it's doing. And for that, it's also quite hard to understand because of like, this is not really the most typical game. So this is not like an FPS game where if you shoot and you see something like exploding, it's probably going to deal damage. Same with this, because you have a combination of something more unusual of a game concept together with like mainly green colors, but then also elements which look spiky and stuff, which do not necessarily indicate damage, even though they probably will. And on top of that, I think for your portfolio work, it's the most important, first of all, get more context in. That's basically everything people already said. Plus, try to provide a bit more variation in your portfolio. I don't know if this is your only piece or if this is just the one you sent in. But just having this one thing where everything is kind of in a similar style, but it fits together for a character is great as a starting point. But then it just kind of is like building up upon this. And if you would implement everything Michał already said with like the tiles and damage areas and just clearer indication of what those effects should do, you can jump over and do a second character set. And then if you would have like 2 or 3 different ones, it's going to be a quite decent start as a portfolio when you just start and try to get your first jobs. But also try to make sure there is a bit more variation, not just for this kind of game, because especially if you never worked in the environment of like game dev, it's kind of hard just to getting into this one specific genre. You probably more going to be like, yeah, whatever is open right now, and where I'm like will be taken is where I will work at. So providing a bit more variation in your genres can really help that. Not just like the art style can help, but it's even if you just stay with fully stylized as this is, just jump a bit around with like from RTS games to something which is a bit more like action focused or FPS game. Just have this variation because it makes it a lot easier for people who look through your portfolio to judge if you're ready for the job.
Exactly. Okay, I hope that's good enough. And let me get the next one. Okay, so there we go. Valeria. That will be inside meme in this Discord. Okay, so first thing I already see is that the presentation is quite good. You already your works are being presented very consistently. Yes. So you have your Unreal logos here in the same place with the same size. Have quite good shots of your FX, which is very, very important. Yeah, some info about you looks good to me. Let's see that works. I might probably, I will start with this one. I probably need Mustafa feedback on it because I'm not too good with realistic, but we'll see. So, for me, this explosion, like for my eye, looks quite good. I really like those little sparks here. Maybe the refraction feels a bit too strong for how I would look at this effect, or maybe it's fading out too quickly and it's kind of creating this a bit irregular feel on, like, how to call it, like a bit unrealistic feel. I'm not sure, but overall I kind of look like how it looks like. Mustafa, maybe you want to say something about it because you have better eye for realistic. So
Yeah, so a couple of things that pop up to me in here. Like, from the way I look at this is probably as made in Embergen. So one thing I would suggest when doing flip books and things like that, you need to be careful of what you're actually trying to do. So for example, in this explosion, I really like it. My only issue is the texture. And part of the reason I say that is the texture looks more like it's a bigger explosion than it is a grenade explosion, for example. So one thing, when you're trying to do, for example, a omnidirectional explosion, you want those effects to go omnidirectionally and not just in a upward direction. So for this explosion, the one thing I see is like you have something going upward, but not a lot of context to what it really is. So for example, if you're doing a artillery strike, if you're doing a missile or something that's being shot, this would make perfect sense as far as the flipbook going upward. But if you're thinking of doing something like a grenade or something like that, I would have a centerpiece and just make it go in a omnidirectional way. That way you'd have more of a uniform direction, or basically a force from the center outward. Because to me, this feels like something is hitting from above, and then that's causing it to go upward. But other than that, I really like the shape, the look, and the feel of it, to be honest. The one thing I would say, if you're going to more of a realistic side, Michał, can you pause it like a little bit towards the beginning where it's like, this frame. The center of it, it looks like the sparks are dying so fast that it looks like it is part of the explosion. So I would basically have those go a bit faster. But other than that, I think you have the right application when it comes to actual explosions and doing simulations.
awesome. Thank you for bringing that in. I will now go to my part, which is more semi-realistic stuff. So, for this, okay, we have two views here, which is good. First thing that I notice here, I'm a bit confused about the clarity itself. Again, like with the previous person, that you have this cast that throws a powerful wave, well, like this wave here, and it reaches the ends of the disk. Maybe it will be more visible here. So we have the cast that goes even here. I can clearly see that this is like radius that being affected, while the AOE itself is stuck on this little rig here. So like the frozen ground and all of that. Because of that, you're kind of getting wrong information about what's the area of the spell. And it's extremely important in games. Like, our main job is to convey the gameplay so that people don't get annoyed that, oh no, it hit me while I was like not in a visible range and stuff like this. So that's first thing I would change. Either increase the radius of this frozen part, like all the elements that are hitting here, to the big one, or decrease those here. Overall, I really like the looks of the textures. So the ices looks pretty decent. I'm not sure if it's appearing too instantly, maybe. Yeah, it's kind of like, let me. It's kind of, I have pushed the tag on a button that doesn't allow me to click here. Yeah, it kind of appears instantly, which breaks the immersion for me. So what I would do, you have a really nice dissolve here at the end. You could just make it solve, so like show up with that dissolve quickly at the beginning, like with much quicker appear than it dissipates. But yeah, just giving it a look that it's not instantly just happening. Also, there are a lot of different sparks that are happening, but I like the movement quite a lot. Maybe I will randomize the movement a bit here on those that are going in this circle. You could like add a more randomized velocity, so it's not visible as that shape, but more like kind of a noisy thing that is going all around somewhere. What else? I think the colors might be a bit misfitted here. So you have a bit different type of blue at the beginning that doesn't fit, with rest of the effect. Maybe you could have that blue there, but mix it a bit more with those colors that you have for this part of the effect. But overall, I like it quite a lot. It's a very powerful ice explosion. Okay, let's go further. Okay, so here we have a projectile, lightning projectile. There are a couple of things. So first thing I would focus on is the projectile itself. So the ribbon we are using, all of that. If I pull, please. Yeah, something like this. We have a very, very long line that is all bright. So we don't have too much variety in the color itself. The values are very similar, and it's very hard to see what's the most important part of it. Usually for the projectiles, you want to have top, like the head of the projectile be the brightest. I have like the biggest size. And then the trail itself, decrease the value so that it's more smooth and that you can focus your eye on one point. Here, my eye is basically going like this because I kind of don't know what to focus on, and I don't know which part of it is dangerous to the player. So I would just make it a bit bigger here, a bit more intense here, while decreasing the intensity here. That will already help a lot with the projectile itself. Then we have the contact. I've seen that a lot on people's portfolio, so I'll mention it quickly. When you have a point of contact, I can see it. Basically, there's a moment when this projectile is hitting the player and it transitions into that lightning from the top. It doesn't really blend too well together because you have all lightning coming here. So what I would expect is some kind of damage, like electric arcs coming this way because they follow the velocity. And then basically like a hit here, main impact here with electricity going out there. But what you do is do the projectile going here, and then your impact is coming from the top, which doesn't really explain why the projectile is here in the first place. Maybe it would be better to have some kind of a cast that is like sending thunder into the air, like in the sky towards the player, and then it hits here. Then it would be a bit more cohesive with what you're doing here. Or the other way, so you have a projectile that goes here, and then you have an explosion that follows that velocity and goes into that direction. Your feel for the electricity is decent. You have very quick lightning that goes down. There's a lot of shockwave and like energy coming through here. So I'll probably just stay with the lightning itself and do the cast that isn't the projectile, is just casting up the sky. Okay, I have to move further because we have a lot of people. So do a couple more. So this one. Shield itself looks pretty decent. I like all those. I like this texture that goes from top to bottom here. Yeah, it's a really nice design, especially with the values here. The hexagonal shield, or the hexagons here are a bit too static compared to all other elements. Maybe I'll move them a bit, maybe change the values on them a bit, so have some kind of like a noise that would go over them and highlight different parts of it more. Overall, definitely gives a feel of a shield. The other problem I might see could be connected to the timing itself. So when the character hits the ground here, you would want the shield to appear instantly the moment she hits it. Okay. Sorry, Bjorn is spamming me in my DMs. So the moment she hits the ground, it's already a time where her shield should be up. So you're giving some kind of a cast here with the animation. Bam, there were like 2 seconds of the animation that were already giving you a build up for what's gonna happen right now. And then the moment she hits the ground, it should be like, oh, instantly you have that effect. Maybe some like when you have the energy gathering here around the shield, you could probably do that already in that animation at the beginning, some kind of energy gathering in the sword and then spreading into that shield very quickly. That would give a much more powerful look, and it will be just better for gameplay purposes. Okay, I think we won't be able to go through the last two, but yeah, overall, your realistic piece was, I think, probably the strongest one. I like it quite a lot. Your frost AoE is also good. There are just those things that with the range and mostly the range is the problem there. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. Your shield is probably a bit weaker from those 4. So I'm not sure if you want to keep it, or if you want to keep it, then improve the timing at the beginning, so make it more punchy. And also try to make the texture look a bit less static. Okay, I think that will be it from my feedback. Do you guys have anything to add? My lovely companions?
Not from my part, to be honest.
A bit, but I'm gonna keep it rather short for this one. I think you went over a lot of things already quite nicely. I personally think that your second newest piece is by far the strongest. The explosion is not bad, but there is like some issues with like the fading out, the general look of the flipbook in my eyes, plus a couple more things like refraction and interactions on the ground, which I would say it's still a good piece, but it does not really reach the frost AoE. To what Mano said to it, there is some issues with the range indication as well as other effects, but overall it blends quite smoothly. The overall animation feels good in combination, and I could see this like with a bit more polishing easily in a game, which doesn't mean that the explosion could not work, but I think overall it's a more interesting piece as well. So it kind of reminds me a lot of those explosions and stuff from God of War, which might have been even the reference. And yeah, if you put a bit more work into it, obviously it's already out. So, but if you kind of get a similar level of quality on the next one. And in the last pieces, you can kind of clearly see progression, which is kind of the most important thing when you look into a portfolio of a junior. The first thing is always, okay, where did that person start? Where is she now? And then you kind of decide, okay, how good is that progress? What else do I need to teach that person to fully work in a production? And overall, I think you kind of showcase nicely that progression so far. And it's now doing a couple more things, getting more feedback, and yeah, keeping it up, honestly.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Your progression is definitely visible here. So yeah, just keep the good work and you'll be good. You'll be really good. Okay. Yeah, let me get the next one. Jessica. Okay. There we go. I hope it's visible. So yeah. That's a really cute banner, by the way. So as for the presentation itself, for just your ArtStation, there are a couple things. First of all, your Unreal logos are all over the place. That looks kind of funny, but like I would probably put them all in like one corner, like bottom left, like here, and have it the same size also because you have different sizes. So put it here, 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 and then it will look like much more professional from the first glance already. Also, you would make them white because your backgrounds here are quite dark. So when you have a black Unreal logo, it doesn't pop up as much and it's not so readable. Like here it's okay, here it's kind of okay. But I would, in most of those pieces, I would just change it to white and it will look much better. Yeah, let's dive into it. Oh, also, okay, the shots are quite good, but maybe when I will be reviewing the VFX, I'll be able to add something else. So let's see. So here we have some kind of loopable effect. I suppose that might be some kind of like for environment something. With those kinds of effects, it's always hard to give a proper review because it's hard to imagine where it will be placed in the game itself. So yeah, how to approach it? Let's maybe just talk about the look of it for this one. So you have a lot happening here. I will make a loop. Thank you. Okay. So use a variety of colors first. So you went for the red, orange here and went for the purple, blue here, which is good. I actually like the colors quite a lot. I'm not sure about the light itself because you have different colors here and totally different color for the light, which reflects this other effect. So I would go for something more similar to this part of the effect, and maybe you'll be even able to do the blend with what's happening at the top to have a bit more fitting values. Like always try to remember about keeping the effect cohesive. So, okay, we have the core here with, for example, energy gathering. So we want it to be, let's say, red and the brightest point. And then it goes to different types of colors. So like more purple, more blue, indicating that the energy is being decreased over time and over distance. So very important to keep that in mind while thinking about the effects. Also, probably there will be a good idea to do some kind of blend between those so they look more like one effect rather than just two separate. But overall, it looks kind of eye-catchy, I would say. I'm not sure what I would use it in a game for, but yeah, maybe maybe there is something. If you want to show it in some environment, maybe that will be even better. So, for example, I remember in Destiny 2, there were like a lot of environments where they were like walking the space, and there were a lot of weird looking paranormal effects, kind of like this. Maybe you could do something like this. Then it would actually have a meaning for game itself. So do some kind of environment that reflects the space or something. Then you have like a walkable terrain or something, and you have this appearing somewhere in the environment, showing that it's some kind of important effect you have to watch out for. Then it would already gain some points for the recruiters or VFX artists watching your reel. Okay, the next one, the sword slash. Ooh, with a little whirlwind at the end, which is quite interesting. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about values here. For the values, as you can see, your entire sword slash is very emissive. Like there's a bit of variation here on the edges, but what I would do is probably try to change the texture so that you have the most emissive part here at the very edge where you deal the damage. Then you have a gradient going here and kind of fading it out and having more bluish here, for instance. And same with this part here. So just trying to get values that are intense at one point. So like, for example, this line here, then they create the contrast. So there's like a gradation here. So we can actually put more texture work into it. So if you want to have details visible, you won't see them if everything is emissive. You have to have parts that are less emissive so you can actually see what's happening here. So that's one thing. The other one is timing. Timing isn't too bad. I've seen worse timings, but what I would do is try to make it appear faster. So appear almost instantly with a little fade in, and then decrease the value after like 0.1 second drastically. So for, I don't know, if you have value 10, then decrease it to value 2 or something for the emissive. And after 0.1 second, and try to fade it out nicely. So it will be barely visible, like aftermath, while having less value so it doesn't already look like it's damaging or causing damage to anything. And it will leave that nice aftermath to those all slashes. You can also add some kind of secondary elements like some sparks that are coming from that sword slash, so it doesn't look too plain. So having like little sparks that follow along the path, or there's already a flash. Is there a light that illuminates the ground? I mean, kind of being reflected. But what I would do is also you can add a light that will appear just for like a very beginning of that each hit, so that you get a proper connection to the environment. And it will be already much better, especially with the values. Okay, let's see the next one. Okay, the sources, I already can see that there are basically the same things as with the previous one. Also with the fact that you could increase the speed of that projectile. You have a lot of dynamic here, and this projectile kind of looks like it wee in the air, while it should be dynamic to show that it's powerful. Oh, you have also this perspective. That's actually really good that you showcase it like this, because it gives me a bit more clarity on what's happening. Basically the same feedback as to the previous one, so we will go further. Nice. I really like those wings. They're very pretty. It's a nice material work here. You also added little butterflies. I would definitely add a bit more velocity to them so they don't look like they're just static in the air. Just make them like fly around the character with like normal speed or something. But the butterflies are a great addition to that. As for the effect itself, I don't see the fade in for wings appearing. So you're using a lot of those sparks and like little dots here. You could do that at the very beginning when the wings appear, the shape of the wings is basically like a spawn location for little sparks that are brightening up and maybe adding a little flash that will make it so that the wings appear more naturally. And then also the bloom on those sparks is a bit too intense. I would randomize the values so that you have sparks that are a bit more intense and sparks that are a bit darker, and then it will look a bit more interesting. But overall, it's a really nice idea for the transformation itself. It just needs a bit more blend between different elements. And yeah, I think we will end on this one. Let me think if there's anything I want to... Oh no! How do I do this? I'm not ArtStation Pro, unfortunately. Okay. One more thing I can add already, looking at those effects now, is that you have a bit of repetitiveness in terms of, okay, here's a sword slash, here's another sword slash, here's a beautiful butterfly, here's another beautiful butterfly. It would be good to blend those together. So, okay, we have one ArtStation piece that has sword slashes, and then you have variety of them. So we have this sword slash that is fixed, then you have this sword slash, and they are shown beneath each other. Then it will be more interesting for the recruiter to actually look through your portfolio, because you will see, oh, you have sword slashes here, or you have this here, and they won't be like, I go like this, oh, then I go like this, oh, it's almost the same work, then I go like this, we have butterfly, and then we go like this, and we have very similar thing. So that's also something I would avoid. Just trying to have, try to not have repetitions, because then basically recruiter will quit watching after this one, I suppose. Okay, Björn, Mustafa.
You go first, Mustafa.
I don't have really much to say, because mostly for me it's more on your style, Michał, but most of the stuff that you've been talking about, yeah, I think that is the main thing that needs to be worked on. One comment I have on the effects for the wings, I really like those, and they look really nice. The one thing I would suggest, and you guys can correct me on this, you can do a kind of a reveal effect to them. So where you have them, you have a gradient, dark to white, and then you basically fade them in and out like that from the center outwards. But that's honestly my only comment to this, because how you went through it all.
Yeah, so I would actually have a bit more to say about this. Yeah. Overall, I think the creative side works well, but like a lot of the principles, and especially like the technical knowledge, how to connect the tech side to the artistic side in the game engine is really lacking. So everything that's on here works in terms of it could be a very good portfolio piece, but because it has a lot of issues just on the pure implementation, not even like the effect itself, but like the pure fact that like basically all the effects are so bright that I can barely understand what's going on. Plus some effects not really having a lot of stuff to them makes it really hard to judge. So overall, I would say it is really necessary for you to look into a lot of the principles, how color and brightness works. This is the main thing. Try to get an understanding of how does the human eye see images? What is the focus point? What do you need to put the actual color values in? So the parts which are bright in the image. What are more the supportive elements? And then also, how do you convey this in a nice way? Because you have effects which could be really interesting, but they really break immediately as you take a look at the image, because it is almost impossible to understand what some of those effects are supposed to do. And the ones which you can understand are more on the basis of, this is like, for example, the wings. They're really nice, but they pop in without basically anything, and then these sparks are just super bright, like Michał said. They also don't really have like a velocity stretch to them. There is no real movement or like liveliness to the entire thing happening. it's all decent ideas which are not really executed with the necessary knowledge to execute them. So this is kind of an example where I would say try to build easier stuff. Don't necessarily follow those kind of tutorials where it goes very cool, flashy, fighting effects and like shaders for the wings, and also the nebula stuff. Try to find a basic course first, which goes over how do you start an effect? How do you animate something in with just like very basic sprites that actually, like you have even like the wings appearing, but like it's just like white sprites, and you just kind of learn what it means to build an effect so it gets an impact on the player or viewer. Because also the nebula effect is pretty cool, and all the effects could be really cool. But there is kind of the lacking understanding of how colors and shapes plus even velocities and forces work together. So the nebula, for example, has a lot of colors which kind of don't really work insanely well together. Like even nebulas have kind of a set color scheme if you look into them. And also this one does have a lot of velocities going inwards, going outwards, like bursts, and then like stuff even in the orbit around it, which makes it very, very hard to understand what it's supposed to be. And even like Mihao said, first of all, obviously, for those environment effects, use environments to represent what they are meant to showcase, plus like the scale. And then also find the nature of the it's not really strength, but like the nature of speed in the entire thing. Nebula is a gigantic thing. It's very slow moving, and you have like bursts coming out, and that would indicate more it's charging up and then kind of releases a burst. So just the phases of animation need to be there. So I would say you have the creative mindset to create some really cool stuff, but you really should start on a way lower level. And that is really, it sounds harsh, but like it's really, it is way better to just play around with basic sprites and like get to know like what it does, like a trail, just like with a white blob at the start and then little particles on the bottom, and you kind of understand how bright you need to make the individual things to create a pleasing effect. Just play a bit more around with those things and look it up, or like ask us here in the Discord. Always, well, first of all, free and fun. So yeah, that would be.
Can I add anything to it? Okay, so I will add one wisdom that Bjorn kind of mentioned, but I don't think anyone talks about it in VFX community. It's that recently it got very popular that a lot of juniors start with those like very epic ultimate spells that have a lot of to them, like a lot, like there are some attack that it bursts into huge explosion and a lot is happening. It's actually very, very bad to start with that because first of all, when you have a very complex effect, it's much harder for you to make it. Then it's much easier to see the mistakes that you make because it will be harder for you to polish it properly. And it's just not a good thing to start with. So this is kind of the reason why we made an environment course, because those effects that we have there are actually stuff you work in at the studios, and they're the best to kind of learn the way, because they're very simple, like simple sparks or simple fire, rain, things like this. They're just the essentials that you will have in every game. So recruiters will be like, oh, wow, you can do that, and we can hire you so we can make them in the game we have. And also they are just a very good learning path, because then you focus on, oh, you have to get the values right so it looks like a rain. Oh, you have to get the shapes right so it just feels like it's fire and all of that. So yeah, just an addition that, please, if you're starting out, don't start with those ultimate effects from Asian VFX or something. They're just not a good learning path. Okay. And because Bjorn and Mustafa can't disagree with me, I will go to the next one. So what we have here? Oh, Mike. Let's go with Mike. Okay, it failed. Give me a second. No, he disappeared. Mike, where are you? What did I just do? Okay, I have to find Mike manually. Give me a second. Okay, I gotcha. Perfect. Okay. So, let me open the chat so I can see it nicely. Good. And here we have Mike. So, first of all, I really like your consistency. It's really good. Like I look at this portfolio and see, okay, it's clean. You got everything in a very interesting manner, actually. I've never seen anyone do those rectangles at the middle and do the names there. It's quite unconventional, but I think it works. Like it really takes my eye to the work you have here. But yeah, let's talk about the effects themselves. So let's start with this little break everything. Okay, so from one thing I've noticed, most of your effects are actually some challenges, which is great. Like mostly VFX challenges. What I would probably do is if you have challenges from the same category, I would group them together. So, there are your different challenges, because challenges are usually smaller effects. What did I click? The challenges are usually smaller effects that by themselves aren't really a proper portfolio piece. Probably, but if you group them together, they already look much powerful, because you have 4 small effects that then you're like, yeah, but they look really, really good together. And then you can have like additional 2 just personal pieces that you focus a bit more to polish them in a longer time. And then you have a really nice collection of things. Same with the game jam games or game jam submissions. If you have a lot of game jam submissions, you can just group them together into one post, and then they will be very impactful. Okay, so let's talk about this one. I mean, there's not too much to talk here, I think, because I suppose it was mostly about the destruction itself. So the monkey is dead, definitely. I can say that it's you did the destruction well, apart from one part that I just noticed, which are the little rocks that are around. As you can see, all the parts of the monkey are like using the normal physics, and they're spread nicely with a bit of randomization. While when you have those rocks, they basically appear at the same time. I mean, at the same time is good. The way they appear is good, but they're basically having no rotation over time when they're moving or like bouncing off the ground. They kind of look like they're one mesh that is being scaled up and evenly distributed over the surface. You could definitely benefit from having some random rotation, some random velocity, and a bit of like different bounciness and all of that. Then you would have more believable look to it. Same with the smoke. The smoke kind of it appears mostly with the bigger parts of the monkey collapsing. What you could do is actually spawn like a bit more subtle smoke that is like showing on the collision with the ground from all the pieces, or basically with the collision in the ground from all the pieces. And as for the smoke, it's very important to keep that balance. That the smoke is basically very intense at the very beginning, because it's the condensed particles, and then it scales up and fades out evenly, because the particles are basically mixing with the air. So it's much smoother transition. Like I can see that you are making it bigger over time. First of all, a bit too slowly, and second of all, the alpha of it is not decreasing with it. So with the particles just spreading around. and mixing with air. So I would decrease the alpha even faster when you do this. Yeah, let's probably move to the next one. Okay, here we have some cast. That's a cute effect. I love a lot of those effects that are a bit different in terms of like, oh, okay, that actually could be in game in terms of like, oh, you have some love spell or something. So that could work actually. Let me think. Okay, so first thing that I noticed is your use of different elements. So first we have that heart that is 2D that changes into 3D, which is quite cool because then it shows up the bounce from the arrow, which I like. Though here you have totally different heart. Like it kind of looks like you're having 3 different styles. Maybe you could try to make that 3D heart look more like this, so having a bit of stylization instead of just raw default material, and kind of try to keep all the elements to look like they're part of one effect. So, if you have this 2D changing into 3D, try to maybe make this 3D look a bit more stylized like this 2D, and then same with this heart. There are also a lot of elements that are here that are like 2D. You can also add a bit of rotation to them, all of that. But there are just a lot of different elements with different styles, and that's something that kind of bothers me. The other thing is blend between different elements. So here you're having a nice blend between that heart and the 3D one. There is then the arrow goes here, leaving this trail behind, which cuts here. It should probably follow the arrow to the very end, because now it kind of leaves that gap here that feels unnatural. And then the effect here is also like kind of doesn't follow through from the arrow. So we have arrow hitting the target. And I like that there's this little pink glow here indicating that, okay, there's an effect happening. Maybe you can make it more timely, so more punchy, but it appears quicker when the arrow appears. This heart here kind of doesn't fit the overall idea for the effect. I would make it more like an UI element or something like this, or maybe make it so that there's some kind of like this purple energy coming from the smoke or something coming around the sphere that form into that heart, because it kind of looks like a separate element to me. Overall, yeah, I will probably go to the next one. The idea itself is really cool. It could be a good effect for some kind of charm or something like that. It's just mostly the style is very different in all the parts of it. Okay. Now we have a very similar type of effect, so like with the similar view. Here you're hitting some of the idea, which is kind of cool idea, I would say. Yeah, so here one thing I can already say is that here you're already making a better use of the styles. So I see that all those elements are fitting a bit better together. There are some problems with the blend between the environment. So we have this smoke that very clearly cuts through the ground. You can probably make it transparent and do the depth fade, so it kind of looks more like a part of the environment and not like this. Or you can add another smoke that is basically appearing on the ground and covering this area and also like spreading like this. Then you will have also a bit more 3D look. So not only keeping it face the camera, but having the other emitter with the same effect happen facing the sky, so facing upwards. And then you have a bit more 3D look to it. when you have that light bulb, you could add some secondary elements like some sparks coming from it or something like this. You could have, you have light here, but I would keep the light for a bit longer so it blends a bit better with the environment. Overall, I feel it's better than the previous one. But yeah, it needs mostly kind of like a blending with the environment and just a bit more 3D look in terms of like no clipping textures and all of that. And then it will look a bit better. And probably the last one for now. Okay. Also, kind of the same type of effect. So we have a very unconventional projectile coming from one side to the other, hitting target and doing some effect. So you're having that repetitiveness of the same effects again, and it might be a bit boring for the recruiter himself or themselves. And so that I would probably do some kind of different effect, like maybe instead of a projectile going in one direction, hitting that sphere here, I would do some kind of like, oh, you're having a cast of a thunder that goes up and he's here, or like a healing spell that casts only here without the projectile and heals either in like AoE or something. So like more variety in our effects. And here, yeah, basically kind of the same thing with the first effects. So the blend between the projectile and what's happening on the player, that definitely would benefit what we are seeing here. And yeah, I can wait, all effects. Okay, you probably don't need those two folders to probably can just stick with VFX itself because you have just one thing here, but it's not as important. Yeah, so mostly I feel it's trying different effects that you try to spend a bit more time on and polish them so you have nicely switching between different elements, keeping the same style consistent, and yeah, just put them into one ArtStation piece that you have as a as challenges, because then they will gain on a bit of power and people will be able to excuse the flaws you have here. But overall, yeah, some interesting things. And I would also recommend try to go for something more grounded that you can look up the reference. So more like a fire, more like lightning, more like I don't know, water. Something that you can actually look up and try to analyze what are the properties of that I don't know, fluid, of that substance that you're working on. Because with the very conceptualized effects like those, it's really, really hard to get a grasp on how they should look like. Okay, Mr. Bjorn and Mustafa.
I honestly don't have anything to say as far as the last three. It's only the first one that I kind of have a comment on, which is the monkey breaking. One thing that I would suggest when doing destruction, and especially when you're trying to do separate parts or basically just destruction as a whole, in Niagara you can actually just add points to your destroyed pieces to spawn particles on them. So if you want to add more like dust, debris, and things like that, you can do that stuff too. I really like the way you approached it. I'm guessing that was through Blender. My preferred method is Houdini, but that's me. Really great work on that one. Then my only comment is the way that some of the dust and puffs were in the scene. To be honest, I think what Mihao said about the alpha blending and everything needs to be looked at. And also I would do more of either one of two things: do a flip book on those dust particles, or actually have a little bit of panning on the shader for the particle that you spawned for that, just to give it a bit of movement. Floor is yours.
Alrighty. Thank you. Yeah. When it comes to all of that, one thing I'm gonna give you is it's pretty cool that you jumped like to pretty creative things, which are usually the VFX challenges, and started with it, but I think it's a horrible start. like quite honestly, you have something there, and you got a couple of things which are kind of nice. But if this is your main portfolio, everything you uploaded is basically concepts for VFX rather than an actual VFX that people could look at and be like, yeah, like this is how that person would implement something like this in a game. The creative side is pretty nice, like similar to what Mia already said. Like most of those things, well, except the breaking Suzanne, is pretty cool and creative. But I would really suggest you to really start with like more basic stuff. And as soon as you actually like learn to do the boring things, then jump into VFX challenges, because VFX challenges are two things. First of all, a challenge for yourself if you can build something, and kind of a kick in your own ass to actually do something for more experienced people. And it's not really like a good starting point, because you got cool creative stuff there, but you're kind of clearly lacking a lot of the fundamentals to like execute it in a more finalized way. The stuff is cool, like really. But try to build a couple more like basics things, because usually VFX challenges are more a thing of like, I already have most of the knowledge and I'm missing like 10-20% sometimes maybe of like a specific technique which you can like learn during the course of the challenge and what you want to focus on, and not more like a learning path to VFX. It's not horrible, it's just gonna slow you down a lot if you do it like this. So what I would say is take what you have already, which is a decent amount of knowledge gained from those VFX challenges, and now start with like a more basic setup. Build a couple of like the very typical things, which, even though yes, everybody kind of has them in their portfolio, but everybody also kind of needs to have them in their portfolio, because there's a reason why people who like take a look at especially like junior portfolios kind of scan for certain things. First of all, like how much does that person already know? What do I need to teach afterwards? But also like what did he already do? And with that knowledge, just like kind of implement in our game. Where is stuff like, yeah, like Mia already said, we build the environment course around that, because as a starting point in your VFX career, you're going to be very, very likely placed just like to build environment VFX, because nobody else really has the time, and you're going to learn a lot of stuff in the meanwhile to that. So yeah, overall, honestly, really creative, really. Maybe start more like on the default learning path, and then ramp it up again as soon as you have all of that knowledge, because you're clearly creative enough to do pretty cool VFX challenges. Just wait a bit more, I would say.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go to the last one from me. So there we go. Varla. I hope I pronounced it correct. So there, the first thing I see, apart from quite interesting banner here. I have no idea what's that, but very cool. I would probably change it to something more VFX specific, I suppose. But yeah, here you have those different works of yours, which are also a bit inconsistent. You have Unity logo here, and Unreal logo is the same thing. Unreal here with a little outline. So and here totally different look. So I will kind of try to look for which one you like the most and apply it in the same way to other ones. Then you have your Total War Warhammer pieces here, which are, I suppose, from the your like commercial experience. I barely see those logos here. They're probably your most important pieces because they show that you have actual commercial experience in the industry. So what I would do, even if you have, like here it's the right size so you can see the work itself properly. But in the banner itself, I would make the logo bigger. Like for example, like this part of the screen. You look at my portfolio and I have my commercial logos. They're basically easily visible on ArtStation that I work on that certain piece, and they are also consistent. So if you apply that, recruiters already will see, oh, okay, she worked on that. Here they can look at those pieces and be like, oh, that's really cool that she has that commercial experience there. So yeah, that's just one thing. Let's go through your different things here. Maybe I'll start with this one because Bjorn really wanted to say something about it. Let's start with Bjorn.
All right. Yeah, sure. So I actually did this in the Rebelway course together with Lush and then also taught it for a couple of years. So I can actually talk about this effect very nicely, I think. Yeah. So when it comes to that effect, and I gave feedback so many times on this specific effect, it's a very high number. So there's a couple of issues with your version. And can you slow it down in some way?
I have
Okay, but it's fine. I did talk over it. So it just gets harder for other people to see. That's what I'm asking it for. But yeah, so pretty much the first issue is that your race not connected at all to the center of the core. So basically have like those rays just kind of shooting out from sometimes in the middle, sometimes like very weirdly aligned. And also overall, they are on top of the center core. The center core is supposed to be like the focus point of the effect. It's something which slowly charges up. You have like the aura slowly moving in, which you can also see nicely in the current frame. And then you have the rays, which kind of are supposed to be like this eradicate element, which are like a pulsating bomb effect. And there's a couple of issues with this version because first of all, you have the rays which kind of jump around and don't fully feel connected to the core. Second of all, they are rendered on top, making the entire idea of a core being the brightest element kinda irrelevant. Plus, the colors are very, very different from each other, which is another layer of just like disconnection of the effect. The entire effect feels a lot like different emitters placed around rather than like one cohesive system which is supposed to like indicate an shockwave explosion. And this is something which for this effect you can in theory play around with different colors, but it's an effect which is also in the course more designed to teach you a lot about the animation. So keep it to a monochromatic color scheme, and at max, like try to get like a secondary smooth gradient in. So something from example typical is like cyan to like purple or violet, and you can get that to work. But in the current version, you have so many colors going on. You have so many eradicated movements and forces, and they don't blend together as at all. So you also have like the core kind of slowly moving up, which looks fine. The entire animation and not the animation, the timing, it just feels kind of off. You need it to be like a zoop. I don't know if you heard that in a microphone, and yes, I'm a professional voice actor. But yeah, so with all of that said, this is an effect which relies a lot on good timing and the understanding of like how do you blend certain elements into each other to create something cohesive and nice, which you can just kind of place in a gameplay scenario. And what I would give feedback on this is try to rebuild it just in, let's call it, like blue. Let's, for example, in the course, try to make it as good feeling as possible. Get the sort order right, get the timing right, get everything to feel smooth. Also, in the end, you have like the decal, which fades out, first of all, like outwards, but then you have like the inner circle growing inwards, which is a bit of a weird look. It's kind of because of like the erosion you did. But try to make sure that everything feels well connected. The blast and the impact is fine, but most of the other elements don't really work together if you use that many colors. So yeah, I think that would be my main point for this one.
Thank you, Björn. Now I have excuse that you took all my time. That's why this section took so long. So perfect. Let's move to the next one that I can review. Okay, so I've looked at the official artwork because it's a fan art from Assault. It's a fan art from the Puff of Exile. Such a beautiful effect, damn. And let's talk a bit about yours. So, two main things that I see instantly, like your elements are looking quite good, but there are especially two things. So, first one is the timing. As you can see from the actual, like the original one, the timing is very quick at the beginning, so it's very punchy. You feel like you're doing damage, and it's powerful. In your case, you have that slow linear build up at the beginning of the ray, and it causes this effect to look much more stiff, much less interesting. So what I would do is make this beam appear with like a very fast blast, like you make it appear almost in 0.1 second, almost instantly, with kind of like a flash, and then you scale down the values over time and fade it out nicely. So that also comes to the second topic I wanted to talk about, which is the fade out. A lot of your elements here are simply just disappearing almost instantly without giving them time to kind of blend properly with the environment. So always remember, like, that smoke is a good example that I mentioned earlier. Smoke is condensed particles that are moving. And then over time, what did I do? Where am I? Okay, here. Perfect. Okay, so smoke is condensed particles that basically are the most visible at the beginning because they're condensed, and then they are spreading and mixing with the air, so they're losing that intensity. And you can do the same thing here with other elements. So you have those this plexus kind of effect. You can it's very intense at the beginning, so you can decrease the intensity and fade it out, and maybe you can also add those slight movement, like a little curl noise, very little, or little outwards movement that basically adds it more motion, and then it already will look much more interesting as an element. It will blend later much more realistically with the environment. So always with effects that deal damage like this, try to go for that very punchy feeling at the beginning. Kind of like here, they have basically, they cast and it appears kind of instantly, and then they didn't have that aftermath last for too long, apart from like some kind of, my god, it's so quick. Can we slow it down, please? Playback, like this. Let's go. So it appears there's also a nice little distortion, and not distortion, dissolve applied, so that the plexus is not looking as stiff because it's just having like a scrolling texture over it that dissolves some parts of that texture plus flickering, and it kind of appears instantly when you cast it, which is very, very important for the damage feel. Okay, I will move to the next one. Same with the, one more thing. So when you have that thing that is casting it, it could have some kind of force added to it. When it casts the beam, just move it backwards so it kind of resembles the, what's it called when you shoot the gun and you have the recoil? The recoil, yeah. So kind of you can do like some kind of like a recoil to that mirror thing, that then it will just feel more powerful. Yeah, that effect is really, really sick. I also want to something similar. I can do something similar. Okay, so yeah, that's for this effect. Hopefully the boys will fill the gaps later. Okay, here we have your commercial effects. And for the commercial effects, the thing is, there's not much I can comment on because usually, like, every project has its limitations. It has its different things you are connected to. Like, oh, you have a couple days for a certain effect, and you also have those limitations of the engine, limitations of the team, and all of that. So it's always really hard to judge those. So I won't really judge them. But your presentation of your effects seems quite nice. I like it a lot. So you did a good job on those. And it also is also the case with other Warhammer effects because I looked at them. Let's see this thing as the last one. Okay, here the timing is bit. Wait, do we? I don't think we have time actually. Can I go over this one more, or should we go to the next person? I think we are very late.
Yeah, we should go to the next version. Yeah, not gonna work out anyway, but
So, do you guys have additional feedback to this?
what's the point? You're always the first one. Go for it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to think. Also the stuff that you mentioned and like the Path of Exile fan art stuff, honestly, one thing that I would have loved to see, and I know this is not a part of Path of Exile, it's like the actual plexus to move from point to point. I know there are actual meshes and not particles, but it would have been cool to actually have them move, even if they were like vertex animation or something like that. But other than that, honestly, not much to say. But as far as what you guys mentioned on the second effect, and yeah, this is more of your guys' styles, and you better than me when it comes to feedback on this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's a very interesting mix because, like, first of all, we now watched it in an order where it was like personal projects first and then like professional projects after. And I think in this order, it's actually gonna hurt you a bit because your work,
A lot.
yeah, your professional work does have a lot more timing on it, polish on it, and that's mainly probably because you got a lot of feedback. And when you have the current version where it shows like your personal projects, which have like a lot more issues than the professional work, and people see that first. First of all, I'm not 100% sure how many pages people would go down to, and also overall, it kind of weakens your own skills in the mind of a person because it's like, okay, so this is somebody that's like in a professional setting probably needed an insane amount of feedback to get to this point. And this is always kind of problematic in like just for the recruiters. Like, sure, like the lead who's looking over it might see it differently, but it always kind of comes down to how do you present yourself online where you'd actually have professional experience and on a pretty nice game, honestly. So this is really cool. I would try to avoid stuff which on a quality level is lower than that, because usually stuff which you do in production is way lower quality level than what you do in your personal projects, because projects have a lot of limitations from the engine, the budget, the timing, and all of that things combined usually kind of mean that like you will never perform as good in a professional setting as your skills would allow it. That's why personal projects are usually like kind of the look, this is the actual skill I have. And if those things clash a lot visually, it might not have like the best impression. So in my personal opinion, I would actually say get rid of like the Path of Exile one and everything which came after the Warhammer posts, and punch them up and bring them back when you really say, okay, people now said it really looks good, like the taming is good, it feels like the actual effect I tried to imitate, and then you can have like this as your updated version. It's really gonna it's gonna up your game a lot for that. It's always kind of bad seeing like downwards progress on individual posts. You can do something which is smaller, way smaller, but it should always have at least the same level of quality or even higher than what you posted before. Because that's what people are really interested in, seeing this like curve of like improvement over time.
Yeah. Also, ask for feedback a lot. So this is something that will help anyone here. Just if you have something, just post it in either real-time VFX Discord. There are a lot of people that give feedback. Or here, we also are very eager to give feedback, but no one gives us the chance to give a feedback. So just put it in feedback, and we'll very gladly give you like just directions you can follow, and maybe make your effect even better.
Yep.